Welcome to Premier League Matchday 27 predictions. We had some matches from Matchday 25 and 26, so I'm going to go over those. And we have some big time games, including the Matchday of the week, the North London Derby. We'll get to that, but let's start on Saturday between third place Aston Villa versus 15th place Leeds United at 10 a.m. Eastern on Peacock. Villa coming off a draw to Bournemouth on match day 25, but a win against Brighton on match day 26 with that 1-0 win. Villa, by the way, they're still in the mix of returning to the Champions League, by the way. And they were very good when they're trying to get some big wins and losses. Losses, tough results. Going up against Leeds United, who are in 15th place. Surprise? I'm surprised. They beat Nottingham Forest 3-1, and they had an incredible 2-2 draw to Chelsea. And that keeps them still, hopefully, enough to get them to stay in the Premier League. Now, Leeds United is a real good club, really historical club, but also the question I have for this game is, can they put pressure on Villa? And being played at Villa Park, I don't see that happening. I think Villa wins it 2-0. Seventh place Brighton, or Brentford, versus 14th place Brighton at 10 a.m. Eastern on Peacock. Brentford got a 3-2 win against Newcastle. Big time win for them. And then last match day 26, they had a huge draw result against Arsenal, who are the leaders of the Premier League. Big time result against Newcastle. That was a huge win. Going to St. James's Park. Go out there. They beat Newcastle, the Magpies, and that was a huge win for the Bees. But they're still in the mix of Europe. Going up against Brighton, Brighton are they're in a really hard position right now. They had the loss of Villa, of course, last match day, but in match day 25, they had the loss to Crystal Palace. Every Brighton fan right now is thinking Fabian Hurtzler should be sacked. And again, this game is really a huge game for Brighton. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. I think it's going to be very tight, but I just think this probably comes down to, can Brighton play their best? And I'm going to go with a draw of 1-1. Fifth place Chelsea versus 19th place Burnley at 10 a.m. Eastern on Peacock. Chelsea got a 3-1 win against Wolves, while they got a 2-2 draw to Leeds United. That game against Leeds United, by the way, they were very close to getting a third goal and make the big comeback, but fortunately they fell short on that one. Going up against Burnley, who had the loss to West Ham, but had a comeback 2-0 to win 3-2 against Crystal Palace, which, wow, that was a huge win for Burnley. But they're still in the mix of the relegation battle. I think this relegation battle is going to be very great, but also it's going to come down to the final match day. Who is going to get relegated, who is not going to get relegated. And to me, Chelsea should win this 3-0. 18th place West Ham versus 9th place Bournemouth at 12:30 p.m. Eastern on Peacock. West Ham coming off a 2-0 win against Burnley, as I mentioned earlier. But their last match, 1-1 draw to Manchester United. Big time result for them, and they're still alive to keep themselves, hopefully try to stay up in the Premier League. Going up against Bournemouth, who had that 1-1 draw to Aston Villa, but also had that big win in Everton, 2-1 against Everton. Should be a fun one, but I'm going to go with Bournemouth winning it 3-1. Then what could be the match day of the week, second place Manchester City versus 10th place Newcastle United, 3 p.m. Eastern on Peacock. Man City just got 2 more wins, a win against Liverpool, big time, 2-1, and a 3-0 win at home against Fulham. And they're still in the mix of the title race with Arsenal because of them dropping points. I don't know why, but they're still one of those big elites in English football. Going up against Newcastle, who had a horrible loss to Brentford 3-2. But then they got a huge result win against Tottenham 2-1, and they sent Thomas Frank out of there, just sack him. And then, of course, on an additional Champions League, they do beat Karabakh by 6-1. See if that result helps against Manchester City. I think this could be very interesting, and I think going to Manchester City's turf, it's not easy to win. So here, I'm going to surprise everyone. I'm going to go with a draw. Give me a 2-2 draw, and I think this is going to help enough for Arsenal ahead of the North London Derby to stay in first place. Crystal Palace, 13th place versus 20th place Wolves at 10 a.m. Eastern on Peacock. Crystal Palace had the 1-0 win against Brighton, but their last match day, a 2-3 loss to Burnley, which when you're up 2-0 and you're down, and then you let 3 goals slip in your hands, yeah, it's a disappointing loss for them. And for Wolves, on the other hand, they had that 3-1 loss to Chelsea. They had a 0-0 win, 0-0 draw to Forest, which made Sean Dyche out. And they drew with Arsenal just yesterday. What a big result for Wolves. But again, it's too late for Wolves. I just don't think they're going to get some big-time results. And I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. 17th place, Nottingham Forest versus 6th place, Liverpool at 10 a.m. Eastern on Peacock. Forest coming off that 3-1 loss to Leeds, but on Matchday 26, they had the most embarrassing result. 0-0 draw, as I mentioned earlier. They sacked Sean Dyche, and now they hire Victor Pereira as their manager. And as of today, Nottingham Forest beat Fenerbahce in the Europa League 3-0. Yeah, I'm guessing those who come to Forest and they do beat these big elite European teams, wow, big surprise. But this is huge. Going up against Liverpool, who had the biggest loss to Manchester City, but they went to the Stadium of Light and get the massive win there against Sunderland 1-0. I think this should be very interesting, but I think the only question I have for this one is, can Victor Pereira keep Nottingham Forest alive in the Premier League? Because if they can't, things are not going to go very well over there in the City ground. And playing Liverpool, a team that is trying to get to Europe, I don't know. I'm going to go with a 2-1 Liverpool win. 11th place Sunderland versus 12th place Fulham at 9 a.m. Eastern on the USA Network. Sunderland had that 3-0 loss to Arsenal on the road, but then they came back home and lost 1-0 to Liverpool, which ends their incredible home win streak. They've been really perfect at home. Now taking on Fulham, who lost to Everton and Manchester City. 1-2 on Everton, but a 0-3 loss to Manchester City. I think Sunderland gets back on track, but don't keep an eye on Fulham. They will play very competitive, but I'm going to go with a 2-1 Sunderland win. And now let's get to the North London Derby. 16th place Tottenham Hotspurs versus first place Arsenal, 11:30 a.m. Eastern on the USA Network. Spurs, who had the loss to Manchester United, and then on Matchday 26, they lost to Newcastle 1-2. They sack Thomas Frank, and here in comes former Juventus manager Igor Tudor, who has a pretty good resume, but when he's in those the big names like Juventus, Marseille, they're not the same results he had with the smaller clubs. But now he's going to get his opportunity as the interim head coach for Tottenham Hotspurs. And until the end of the season, we'll see if they probably end up seeing what he's done, or they just look for a new direction. But going up against Arsenal, who are also in this situation as well, they had besides the 3-0 win against Sunderland, they had the draw to Brentford 1-1, and they had an embarrassing draw to Wolves 2-2. And both North London clubs are in a must-win game. And I said it earlier, Man City can draw 2-2 to Newcastle. Is that enough for Arsenal? I'm going to say it is going to be enough. I'm going to say Arsenal wins it 2-0. Sorry, Tottenham, but good luck this season. Good luck. And to wrap up, Matchday 27 on Monday, 8th place Everton versus 4th place Manchester United at 3 p.m. Eastern on the USA Network. Everton had a 2-1 win against Fulham, but lost to Bournemouth 2-1. Going up against Manchester United had that 2-0 win against Spurs, but that draw to West Ham, which I know everyone in England has heard someone very famous as a Manchester fan. Probably he's a Manchester United fan, had the hair, and by the time West Ham drew 1-1, yeah, I know. Win streaks don't end up very well. This could be a tricky game for Manchester United because Everton are still in the mix of European football, and I would be love if Everton goes to Europe. But I'm going to go Manchester United. I think they get it done in Everton 2-0. That's it for Premier League Matchday 27 predictions. If you're not seeing my other videos, go check them out on my channel. Of course, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell for more sports news.